This is my 2000 Audi S4 that I've been restoring over the past few months. This car came from the factory with a 2.7-liter twin-turbo V6. This is mated to a 6-speed transmission and quattro all-wheel drive. In the States, this car was detuned compared to its European counterpart and made about 247 horsepower and 258 foot-pounds of torque from the factory. If you've seen these cars anywhere online, however, you'll know that this engine is full of potential. This engine will readily accept modification, and it's absolutely insane what kind of power you can get from just bolt-ons and a tune. Today we're starting the process of preparing this car to handle that added horsepower.
It is finally time to make more power in the S4, and we're going to go through pretty much the entire process of preparing the car for boost. We need to replace the spark plugs and coils, make sure there's no vacuum leaks or anything like that, and I bought some silicone hoses just in case we end up having a vacuum leak that we need to address. I'm going to go through a pre-tuning checklist on the S4 today and show you how to get your car prepared for tuning. Increased boost does mean more power, but that also means that you're going to put a lot more stress on the engine and the hoses and pretty much all the gaskets in the entire system. It'll be a lot of fun.
Before we get into the pre-tuning checklist, I wanted to fix something about this car that's been bothering me. This door handle has a broken mounting bracket, meaning that it pulls open the door card and not the door itself. After a quick search online, I was able to find an exact replacement part from a donor car. This piece pops right out, and there's a few electrical connections to all the buttons, and then the new one will slide right in place. I wish I was able to source an entire door card like I did for the passenger side, but due to the limited quantity of these cars available as donors, since they all had unique trims, it's simply not something that was possible. Sometimes finding interior parts matched to a rare interior is difficult when you're restoring a car. For example, both of the pieces of door trim that I bought for this car were so rare that I could only find one person selling them online. In other words, these will be things that I'm constantly looking for, and they're going to be quick hit fixes for this S4 to bring up the quality. Just these two pieces alone made a tremendous difference because now I have something that I can grab onto to actually shut the door. Now it's time to jump onto the actual pre-tuning checklist. Whenever you tune a car, you're putting more stress on the engine than it was initially designed to handle. As such, the first thing I suggest doing is making sure that you're actually able to monitor what's going on with your engine. I mentioned this in a previous video, but when I bought this car, the coolant sensor had actually become disconnected and the wires were just snapped off. The car has coolant, but it doesn't know that it has coolant. While this isn't a mechanical problem, it's a little bit like the boy who cried wolf. If I'm ever in a situation where my car is actually low on coolant, I want to know about it. Fixing this is as simple as wiring up a new sensor. The next thing we need to talk about is boost and vacuum leaks. As cars age, they start to lose their ability to keep an airtight seal in the vacuum and boost lines. Due to the material's age and years of heat cycling, both of these silicone pipes that are shaped like lobster claws had cracks in them, so I'm replacing them with updated silicone ones. Before asking your car to handle more than stock boost levels, you need to make sure your car can handle the stock boost levels. You want to go through all your vacuum lines to the best of your ability and replace all the ones that look like they have cracks in them where air can escape. This is an old car and it's going to be hard to get it completely perfect, but using a boost gauge you can tell if there's anything major you need to worry about. I was able to eliminate most of the major boost leaks on my car, and I have more pipes to help with that on the way. You can use universal hoses for most of the system, but for some of the parts that are a little bit more bespoke, you need to order custom piping. The next thing on the pre-tuning checklist is to make sure that your engine is healthy. This car has a check engine light, and it's for an intermittent misfire due to the ignition system. This car has a pretty dated ignition system, and thankfully they make some pretty good kits to modernize it a bit. You want to make sure your ignition system is up to the challenge of tuning. That means you want to make sure that your ignition coils and your spark plugs are up to date. Since this is a project, I have no idea when they were last replaced, so I'm going to take this opportunity to both replace them and upgrade them using this ECS tuning kit. This kit includes everything you need to modernize the S4's ignition system, including updating it to more modern coils and deleting the ICMs. I also picked up new Iridium spark plugs, which I'm gapping based on what my tuner suggested. I talked more in detail on this in the last video if you're interested. I think one of the coolest things I can think of about this car is the way that it can be maintained. German cars are over-engineered, and this is something that I find extremely fascinating. I've never seen another car where the coolant tank is designed to be movable so that you can service your coils and plugs. It's very nice to not have to drain your coolant to get it out of the way. Similarly, on the other side, all you need to do is remove the airbox to get enough space to work. These two sensors on the top are the ignition control modules, also called the ICMs. They can be unbolted, and the rest of the intake can be removed simply by removing the clips. I just did this same job on my TT225, and I can say without a doubt that the coils are easier to get to in this car than on the TT. I find that really funny given the reputation of how difficult this car is to work on. Similarly to the TT, these coils need to be unbolted. There's only one difficult screw to get to, but that can be fixed just by removing the lobster claw silicone hose on both sides. To give myself even more room to work, I decided to remove the upper Y pipe and the MAF sensor. The next thing I did was unplug all of the coils and remove them one by one. Once the coils are out, it's as simple as removing each of the spark plugs. I used a spark plug socket to remove it, but that's not the only way to do it. One of my subscribers left a really cool tip in the comments of my last video. If you're trying to remove spark plugs and you don't have a spark plug socket to grip onto the plug, you can simply reinsert the coil and it'll hold onto the plug. That's a really good tip in my opinion, and it shows you that there's more than one way to get a job done. You'll notice I put the new ECS tuning bracket over where the coils used to be. The new coils don't bolt in, they simply pop into this bracket, so we need to bolt the bracket down instead using the included hardware. I then did the same exact steps on the other side where there was even more room to work. To be honest, so far I'm pretty impressed with how logical the layout of this engine is. Everything on this car is almost exactly where you think it would be logically, and routine maintenance just seems to make sense. Here are the old plugs that I pulled out of this engine, and man, do some of them have a lot of carbon on them. I have no doubt that these partially caused my misfire, and I'm sure that the new ones will help a lot. These are the plugs that came out, and they're pretty crusty. They're not as bad as I thought they would be. Another thing to consider as to why this was misfiring is it does have test pipes and a full exhaust with a muffler delete, and it is on the stock tune, so it's flowing a lot more air than it really knows, so that could cause a little bit of latency. That should fix with the tune. I got the plugs torqued down to the manufacturer's spec, and then I went ahead and inserted the new coils. I'm really liking the look of this coil pack so far. It may initially look like I'm putting these coils in upside down, but once you see how the wiring harness fits in, it'll make more sense. Each one of these coils makes a satisfying click as it pops into place. Overall, I'm really happy so far with how this looks. This is the wiring harness that ECS supplies, and it connects each one of the coils with their original plug-in location. It ends up looping towards the back of the engine and up and around towards the plug-ins. These new coils also have a ground wire that you need to mount up here to the bolt in the fuel rail. Not really sure with how I like how it's sitting, but we're gonna continue and see if it runs better, because that's what matters in the end. I then put the driver's side harness on, and I did my best to move the wires so that they were hidden as best as possible. Here's what it looked like with both sides wired up properly. Wiring is good to go. I'm going to start reassembling everything. These new coils sit up pretty high, so you can either modify this coil cover or not use it. I opted to not use it so I could see the shiny new coils. The next thing we need to do in this kit is delete the ICM. These are modules that help control ignition timing through thermal conductivity. They're designed to work with the old coil system, so when you update it, you no longer need them. I simply plugged in the new harness. We've done everything we can as far as ignition today, and before we test it while the car's in the garage next to an outlet, I need to do one thing related to tuning that is critical for prepping for putting a tune on next time. Motoza Performance was kind enough to send me out their remote tuning kit for the B5S4. This includes everything I'm going to need to have to run multiple octanes on this car, including E85. I'm going to go more into detail on the process of tuning when we're actually able to upload tunes to the car, but it includes some upgraded injectors and, of course, the upgraded software. The first step in remote tuning is to download your ECU's data to your computer and send it to them. When you're reading a base map or uploading a tune to your car remotely, you need to make sure that your battery doesn't die and your ECU doesn't crash mid-upload. Otherwise, you're going to brick it and you're going to have to send it to them to get completely redone. Their kit comes with hardware to plug your computer directly into your OBD2 port and their custom software, which has a bunch of functionality. I'm planning to go into full detail on what this software can do in the next episode. For now, all we need to do is connect and read the base map of the ECU. Once the process is started, the computer is going to clone all of the data stored in your ECU for your specific car onto the PC. This can take quite a while, and you risk your battery dying if you don't use a battery tender. Once this is done, I saved it on my computer and sent it over to them. What they do is send you a modified version of your own ECU file so that the computer doesn't freak out when you're trying to upload new software to it. I'll be following up on this when we have the tune in hand. We finally had a nice day of weather after this, and I decided to do some more cleaning on the car. These old leather seats are really dry and crusty, so I wanted to use a leather conditioner to help start to bring them back to life. This is going to be a multi-step process, but this is the first step. Leather seats need a lot more care than cloth seats, so you want to make sure to use a conditioner every now and again to keep them from cracking and potentially splitting. I'll do a full restoration of these seats at some point, but I just wanted to make sure they were moisturized a little bit. While I was installing the coils and the plugs, I noticed that my air filter was completely full of dust. The car has a full exhaust with twin test pipes. That means this car is able to flow a lot of air past the turbos with little back pressure. I've said this before, but I'll say it again. Whenever you increase the exhaust outflow air, you're going to want to increase the ability of your car to suck in air. I haven't sourced a cold air intake for this car yet, but I know the stock airbox is actually more than capable to hold a lot of power. So unclogging this filter will make a notable difference in itself. Once the new filter's in place, it's time to finally test drive the car and see the results.
Yeah, man, this car's totally coming together. Very much so a fan of it. I am incredibly happy with the 2.0 coil conversion. It fixed a lot of the misfires I was having, and on top of that, it runs like a dream. It's way smoother, idles better. The hoses I replaced definitely helped with one of the vacuum leaks I had, and we unironically fixed a misfire, which in my opinion was probably due to either the ICMs or the plugs. I'm gonna go ahead and send the ECU file off to Motoza, and then they're going to tune it and send me another map. And in the next episode, I'm gonna pretty much comprehensively go over the process of remote tuning a car. We're gonna do some dyno runs before and after so you can see actually the performance gain you get by tuning an S4 and tuning a car in general. It's gonna be a lot of fun, and I'm excited. I hope you are too.
Another thing that you're going to want to check before tuning your car is your fuel pressure and your injectors. I have a set of higher capacity fuel injectors that'll be going in the car as I tune it. Injectors are one of those things that you can't upgrade without changing the software, otherwise you're going to run extremely rich. Overall, tuning is a fantastic way to increase your engine's performance, but there are a lot of precautions you have to take before doing it. These are just some of the things I generally look at before tuning a car. Some other small things you're going to want to look into are your MAF sensor and housing, your diverter valves, and your battery, just to make sure that the whole car is in a good working condition. Once that's set, you'll be good to start tuning. I'm super excited to see where we can take this car with a little bit of software adjustment. If you liked the video or learned something, consider dropping a like and subscribing for more. The amount of support on these videos makes me so happy, and I seriously can't thank you enough. Have a wonderful day.